But when you go out into entrepreneur land, there is a heavy weight, there's a lot of pressure, and you have to be the best you can be if you want to succeed.
That's the amount that you need in your bank account before you jump full-time. That means you have a full year. You have a full year of a runway to make sure that plane takes off.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another very special, as always, weekly live podcast for week number 105. Today we will be talking about how to leave your 9-to-5 and start your own thing.
Oh, yeah.
I think, a lot of people, Alan, they don't really talk about how the transition from what they were doing to what they're currently doing happened. They just kind of go into, well, now this is what I'm doing, and this is how I'm winning, and these are the things that I've done. I know in my story, when I'm on other podcasts, I tell my full story, and I always say, that's usually where people's stories end. Now, we're 900 episodes in, we're multi-six-figure, blah, blah, blah. What you need to know is the first 2 years, the first 3 years were absolutely brutal, and I learned more in those 3 years or 4 years or in the 5 years that we've been doing this than I learned in the previous 27 years of my life. So being an entrepreneur, leaving your 9-to-5 and doing your own thing is the most rewarding thing in the world, but I don't think that people are set up properly, and our goal today is to set you up properly.
Yeah, I think there's this misunderstanding. People at the tail end of the journey, there's one entrepreneur I'm thinking of in particular that talks about how they remember eating corn out of cans in their early journey, and now 20 years later, this person can buy any car they want, any home they want. They're doing very, very well. But there's something called the bow tie, where the level of effort required of you in the early part of the journey, when you don't have a brand, when you don't have a business, when you don't have a team, when you don't have a product or a service, when you aren't well known. If you think about Coca-Cola versus Sam's Cola, which one are you more likely to buy? The answer is Coca-Cola, because you already know it. It's been around for 100 years. There's more certainty there. And so if you're trying to leave your 9-to-5 and start your own thing, there are certain things that Kevin and I want to tell you that we wish we would have known at the beginning. And some people tried to tell us, some people didn't. There was a lot of misbeliefs and misunderstandings out there, especially people on the tail end of their journey that, really have lost sight of what it was like at the beginning of that journey. Fortunately, I have so many clients that are still in the early stages of their journey. Some are multimillionaires, some are at the very beginning, and then some are on their way to actually being billionaires. But I want to today talk about what it was like for Kevin and I in the beginning. I want to preface this. Kevin and I are going to talk a lot about ourselves on this one in particular, but it's because we literally quit our 9-to-5 and we went full-time into podcasting, and we met every obstacle you can possibly imagine, and we made it through on the other end as a very, very successful business. And now at this point, between listens and revenue, we're on the 1% of 1% of 1%. Not a lot of podcasts make it to 900 episodes, and the only way we were able to do that is we were working really, really hard and really, really smart, and we want to take you behind the scenes on how we actually did that, because if you are going to chase your dream, if you are going to go all in on your own thing, you're going to have to realize that some of these people that you see that are teaching and coaching and that are really successful, including us, they're on the tail end of that journey. We've had more success in the last year than the entire 4 years previous. I'm going to say that one more time. We've had more success in the last year than the previous 4 years combined. And so, yeah, things are looking very bright now, live events and next level retreats, and I have 30 clients and all this amazing stuff. Kevin as well, we produce 19 other shows, I think, but it all started with one, and it was so challenging to get there. And so we want to pull back the curtain on what it was like in the beginning, and then what you can expect throughout the journey.
Strong work.
Thanks, brother.
I have a lot of, and as you can imagine, Alan does a lot of business coaching and peak performance coaching. Alan's coaching is business catered, but I think for many people, Alan, I'm sure you'll speak to this maybe in this live or another one, but many people's unlocks happen within themselves before their businesses can grow. So what Alan does is business, but there's a lot of internal stuff that happens. I've leaned into podcast coaching, and one of the first and I would say most common questions I get asked is, how do I make money with a podcast? That's what I get asked on every show I go on. In the post-amble after the interview, And one thing people say to me pretty often is, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to have merchandise. So I'm a podcaster. I have a couple thousand listens. I'm going to start making water bottles with my name on it, and I'll start making mouse pads, and I'll start making t-shirts and coffee mugs and all these things. And one of the things I always tell these people is, number one, that's not going to work as well as you think it's going to. Number two, this is my question for them. Have you actually tested the market? So if you're in your 9 to 5, you have this idea of, you know what, I'm going to do blank. Maybe it's landscaping, maybe it's opening a dog walking business, maybe it's opening a coaching business, whatever it may be. Have you actually tested the market to see if what you want to do is needed in the marketplace? Most people, particularly podcasters, they assume that they're going to say, okay, you know what? I have this coffee mug with my name on it, and that's how I'm going to start monetizing my show. And I always tell them, Alan and I have tested the market. It's not going to work like you think. It's not going to work like you think. And this is part two. So if and after you test the market, you have to realize that if you're not mastering your craft, so to Alan's point, we have had more results in the last year than we did the first 4. Why? Because we have mastered our craft over the last 5 years, and we're better than we've ever been. If you're just starting out, it's going to be difficult to build momentum, and that's okay because you haven't mastered your craft yet. There are a lot of people, again, I speak about podcasting because that's my main focus, but there are a lot of people who Alan and I started this journey with who are podcasters, and they are in the same position or worse than they were when we started and came across them in the beginning. Now, I'm not speaking down about these people, but all I'm saying is they're not as focused on mastering their craft. They're not listening back to their old episodes. They're not listening back to their weekly episodes to make sure that they're becoming better speakers. They're not having deep conversations all the time. They're not learning about business. They're not learning about speaking, about coaching, about whatever it may be. Test the marketplace, make sure your idea is actually something that you can make money on, and then master the craft every single day. If you want to be the best in your industry, you have to be the best at what you do, and that has to start with you mastering your craft every single day. Remember, you're trying to leave something that is stable, and there is a safety net under it, where you might not be the best at your company. And that's okay. I was not the best at the companies I worked at either. But when you go out into entrepreneur land, there is a heavy weight, there's a lot of pressure, and you have to be the best you can be if you want to succeed.
So I remember back in the day, you'll probably remember this too, Kev. BJ's was a big wholesale buy in bulk store that used to, whenever they would come out with a new product, they would put it in the front of the store for free, and they'd give it out for free. The reason why is they're creating certainty in the consumer's mind of like, holy crap, these are delicious. Okay, if I want to go buy some, now I have certainty that they're delicious. And so you kind of have to do that. This is a little bit of a controversial point in entrepreneurship because a lot of people get into entrepreneurship to make money. And while I think money is an important piece of it, I think service needs to come before that. You'll hear a lot of people say, business is about making money. No, the purpose of a business is to serve others. And then with that service or product, you make money. So it's actually 3 things. It's mastery, it's impact, and it's profitability. You master your craft of podcasting, you impact people with that podcasting, and then you make money. You master the craft of coaching, you then coach others to improve the quality of their lives and grow their businesses, and then you make money doing it. And then you reinvest that money back into mastering your craft and back into doing it with even more people. So the purpose of a business is service. So if you want to provide a product or a service to other people, you have to understand that you got to give it away for free first. No one knows you yet. You are not Apple, you are not Microsoft, you are not Coca-Cola. That's okay. Those companies took 60, 50, and 100 years to get to where they are. 100 years for Coca-Cola, 50 years for Apple, I think 60 for Microsoft. I'm not 100% sure of that. The point is when you buy a Microsoft computer or a Microsoft, or you buy a computer and it has Microsoft on it, you know it's going to be good because Microsoft, there was like Windows 95. They've been around for, 27 years. So you're certain that they know what they're doing. Apple, it's been around for 25 years. So, I think it's actually probably like 35 or 40 years for both of those companies. I'm not 100% sure. Here's my point. You have to do it for free first, and then you have to build from there. Kevin and I both. So I'm so grateful. Okay. So I coach one person who has a team of 10, and I'm coaching 5 of his team members. Eventually it'll be 10. And on top of that, I have 20 one-on-one clients as well. So now I coach 30 people, plus I help the team as well on the NLU team. So between group coaching, between the NLU team, between my one-on-one client I was referring to, coaching his business and his whole team, and then my one-on-one clients, I'm leading 60 plus people. That's awesome, and I'm coaching people, and they're all crushing it. I love it. I love what I do. But I did not start there. I started out coaching for free with Amy, who's behind the scenes right now, because I was a fitness coach, and I wanted to start fitness coaching, and she wanted to get in shape. I started out as a fitness coach, then eventually I was a mindset coach, then eventually I was a peak performance coach, then eventually I was a business coach, and that was a progress of 4 years. So I can sit here and say it's so awesome to have all these clients all over the world, all different countries, all different backgrounds. And it's awesome, all different industries and businesses. And it is awesome. But I started by myself for free. And so did Kevin. And so it's really cool now to be heard in 120 countries. But what you need to remember is we started out in this country with 4 listens a day. And so don't get caught up in the glitz and the glam of the tail end of the journey. You have to understand, okay, listen, I've never done this before. Let me go and try to do it for free so that I can start to see myself as a coach. Let me go and do this for free as a podcaster and just provide a service. Let me see how it goes. Let me see if I can gain some traction. Let me add value online for free. And then eventually you build up. And then people start to trust you. They start to trust your value. They start to trust your brand. They start to trust your podcast. They start to trust your coaching. And then you create demand, and then you start charging. So we went from free to $50 a week to eventually $100. And now somewhere, Kevin gets paid thousands of dollars. I get paid thousands of dollars in some cases too to coach and lead people. But we didn't start there. You are not going to start out charging $10,000 as a brand new coach when no one knows you. And I actually don't think you should either. Do what BJ's did. Offer a service or a product for free. Get people to realize how valuable it is, and then ask later for them to purchase it. And then they'll value it even more as well.
Imagine if you got, I love AirPods. I know Alan loves AirPods, and I have the ones that have the noise cancellation, and there they are. And imagine if somebody gave those to you and said, hey, I just want you to try these out for a week and just let us know what you think. And then we're going to take them back, and there's no risk. It's not going to cost you any money. I guarantee after those 7 days, if you like the product, which I think most people do, you would be putting in an order. There's a reason that mattresses have a 100-day sleep guarantee where you can test it out for 100 days. They know, they believe in their product, they believe in their service. And I think a lot of people are trying to pull a fast one, and they just want to get business through the door, and they don't care about the experience. So I think that's a whole nother thing. Alan, quick question. We got to do lightning round because we have a lot of points and they're probably pretty long. When you and I have gotten a lot of advice of you have to make sure you charge a certain amount because it makes you look a certain way, or you don't want it to affect your self-worth. How do you prevent somebody that is charging way less than they feel they deserve, particularly free? How do you help them stop that from affecting their self-worth as a human being?
I think that they just have to have a deeper understanding of whether or not they're brand new. So I'll use a professional athlete. Okay, so professional athletes start out as kids playing, let's say, baseball. You start out playing baseball as a little kid for free. No one's paying you. You're not sponsored. You're playing for free. And yes, people watch. Your parents watch and other kids' parents watch, but no one's paying to watch for the most part. Then eventually you go to high school and you play in high school and you realize, wow, I'm actually pretty good. Awesome. Okay, cool. Then eventually you play in college and you get a scholarship when you're in college. Or you should if you're really good. Now you're not getting paid to play, but you technically are because the college is funding your education. Eventually you get into the minor leagues and you get paid, but not nearly as much as the major leagues. And then eventually you get in the major leagues, and then who knows, maybe eventually you end up on the Yankees. And the Yankees is, I think, the highest paid team. I don't know if that's still true or not, but the point is that you just have to understand that that 7-year-old playing baseball isn't not valuable. They're just 7. That's the point. I don't think that I should be paid as much as Elon Musk because I'm not Elon Musk yet. That doesn't make any sense. And so I think that's the understanding is that doesn't mean that I never can. That's the hard part. I started out for $7.25 an hour as a cart kid and a busboy for a golf course in Rhode Island. But I was 16 years old. I think I was actually, 15 and a half. And so you just have to understand that you're supposed to start somewhere and then build. And the problem is that some of these people that are at the tail end of their journey, so I'll give you an example. So Tony Robbins charges $1 million for 4 sessions and 3% equity within the company. But remember, he coached for free at the beginning. He was helping people all over the world for free in the beginning. But he's been doing it for 40 years. And so it's just a deep understanding of the time perspective. And I just realized that you said lightning round, so I digress.
It's all gravy. So I think of starting a business as very similar to starting a relationship. Nowadays, it's easier than it's ever been. There's a lot of ways. The lower the barrier to entry, oftentimes, the quicker people are to do it. But think about it. Why do so many relationships end up unsuccessful? Because people don't study them. They don't try to learn why successful relationships are successful and why unsuccessful relationships don't last. Business is the same thing. So my second point, learn sales and actually learn business at a deep level. At a deep level. Yeah, it's cool to find tips on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook, but you really, really have to dive into the deeper layers of business, how business actually works, how marketing actually works, how the money in business actually works, how the expenses work, how sales work. So many people, and I have seen this, and this has been a very, very, I don't want to say a difficult mirror for me, but it's taught me a lot about myself and other business owners. Early on in this journey, I didn't understand anything about sales. I had no idea. I had this aversion to sales. I didn't want to do it, and I had convinced myself that I was terrible at it. Now, when you're broke and there's no other way to grow the business other than to learn sales, you're forced to do it. But I don't want to see you, if you're out there, get to the point where you can't put food on the table. And that's when you start learning business and sales. You have to go in with an understanding that a business, all businesses are run the same. There's the fundamentals, and we're not going to go super into those because that's pretty deep, but there's the fundamentals of what makes businesses work. And if you don't know what they are, you're more than likely going to fail. And I'm not saying that to be pessimistic, but if you go into a relationship and you don't understand your partner's love languages, if you don't understand how to control your ego, how to have open, honest, vulnerable conversations, you're probably not going to succeed. And a business is the same thing. It's honestly, I would say starting a business is probably harder than a relationship because, there's a lot of things that can go wrong, but you really have to make it a commitment that you are going to study this. You need to understand sales. You need to understand margins and money, all of those things. If you don't understand those at a deep level, you most likely will not succeed. And I'm not saying that to be harsh, but I've just seen it so many times. I've been on the phone with people who their lack of awareness is the reason they're not successful, and they've convinced themselves that they deserve to succeed regardless of that. If you don't have an understanding of how the plane works, you're not going to fly it very well. You just aren't. And I don't want to see you crash the plane. So many people do. I don't want that to be you. Alan and I are blessed because we're doing really well, but we're not doing well by luck. We're doing well because Alan has taught me, and he knows a ton about business, and I've focused on learning, and Alan's focused on learning. Do not plan on getting lucky. You should know way, way, way more than you plan on needing to know. And that might be the best advice I can give because nobody ever says that. Like, imagine if we went through this whole thing, Alan, and nowhere did we say, well, if you're going to leave your 9-to-5 and start your own thing, you have to study business and sales because that is what your business is. It's business and you figuring out sales in order to make money in your business. I think a lot of people leave those out because either they seem obvious or they're not sexy to talk about. But oftentimes it's the least sexy thing that's the most valuable and important.
Hi, my name is Bianca Thomas, and I am the co-founder and COO of Evolve Ventures. I have had the absolute gift and honor of knowing Kevin and Alan since the beginning of their journey. And I've seen their evolution. I've seen their growth. I've seen the men that they have become. And it is for that exact reason that I have invested so much time, so much energy, and so many resources into being in their orbit, having them as my mentors, as my coaches, and even doing group coaching. They are two of the most extraordinary human beings I've ever met, and they have made my life so much better. I was a fraction of the person that I was now beforehand, and having them in my orbit, having them as my coaches, having them as dear friends, I truly believe is the reason that I am who I am and where I am today. So I hope that this gives you the message that you need, the trust and the belief that you need to take the chance on them. Because I guarantee if you allow them into your life, you are going to get better. Your life is going to get better, and you can achieve and do anything that you want if you have them in your corner. Kevin and Alan, I love you guys so much, and I will sing your praises any chance that I get. I love you guys. I hope this helps.
I think a good analogy, and I'm glad you brought that up, Kev, because I don't think studying is valued enough. I think we think of studying as like when we're in school or when we're in college, and then when we get out of college, we're done studying. I study every single day. Kevin studies every single day. We masterminded for 6 hours today about business and about finance and about the projections of gross revenue over the next 13 years and then even 17 years out. No one sees that, right? You're not seeing that behind the scenes work that's being done. And it's really important to understand that if you want to be a great gardener, you have to study gardening. If you want to be a mechanic, you have to study cars. If you want to be a great chef, you have to study cooking. If you want to be a great business owner, you want to run a successful business, you have to study business. There are so many resources. You can reach out to Kevin or myself. Business Made Simple is one of the best book recommendations we can possibly give. I learned more in that one book. And I don't want to say that I learned more because none of that was really new to me, but it made it simple and fundamental in a way that I think is so beautifully done. So you might learn more in that book than your entire college education if you are a college educated person, but about business in particular. And so that one book is super, super valuable, but there's a lot of others as well. Super important. Study, study, study. You have to fall in love with studying every single day if you're going to be an entrepreneur. This is an infinite game, and it doesn't get... I was on the phone with a client recently. I said this to Kev, and I want to give a shout out to Kevin S. And he said, yeah, being a lawyer is like a pie eating contest where the reward, the prize is more pie. And what he was saying is that when you're a lawyer, when you do amazing work and you work a ton, then you just get more work. I really want to say this, and I don't want this to be a bash on entrepreneurship thing, because it's not, okay? Entrepreneurship is the most rewarding, most wonderful thing I've ever done, but it's also the hardest thing I've ever done. And I want everyone to understand, it's a lot like a pie eating contest where the reward for winning is actually more pie. Remember, there is no end. You're not like, Kevin and I are not done after this, right? There's never a clock that you punch out, oh, okay, now I'm going to relax. Right? When the entire team is depending on you, it is up to you, and I want you to understand that. Okay. Number 2 for me, which we're going to have to crank. Number 2 is keeping your expenses low in the beginning is a superpower. So Kevin and I did this very, very well. So as you know, we made a lot of money in our mid-20s, early 20s and mid-20s. I had $150,000 in an investment account, and I lived with my girlfriend at the time up in Worcester, and then I moved home when I quit my job, and I moved home with my mom. Our first studio was in my sister's old bedroom, and you can still watch some of the videos on YouTube back in the hundreds for that. Then our second studio was in my mother's old basement, which was my sister's old apartment downstairs. Then eventually we had a studio. Now I live with Emilia in this amazing condo. But my point is, we didn't start there. That $150,000 runway, that financial runway, that nest egg that I had, I remember I had to liquidate my assets over time, because it's like, okay, not making enough money, got to liquidate. Okay, not making enough money, got to liquidate. So we eventually went all the way down, and then we went into a little bit of debt, and now we're climbing out of that. And this is not uncommon. I need you to understand. When people start a business, the first few years, I had a business coach early on. It was my Aunt Joanne, and she started the first woman-founded financial firm in New York City. Unbelievable. And she said, Alan, just so you know, you're not going to make money for like the first 2 to 3 years. And I remember back then being like, no, I want to make money now. Like, we're going to make money soon. She was right. We didn't make money for we made some, but not a lot, right? This entrepreneurial journey is about staying power. This entrepreneurial journey is about who can hang in the longest. And you're not going to hang in there if you have high expenses. You have to be very, very careful. I made $180,000+ per year. I drove a $5,000 2004 Volkswagen Passat when I was 26. When I got in that car accident at 26, that car was totaled. I went to our buddy Matt's old car that he was driving in high school, and I bought it for $3,200. And I drove that car for the whole beginning of this journey. And that's the car that I was driving. And now Kevin and I, we had enough money that we could have both bought brand new cars a couple months ago if we wanted to, but we're not going to, because we're going to reinvest in the business. And so my point here is, you got to keep your expenses low in the beginning. If you have high expenses, you're in trouble in entrepreneurship. That's what it is. You cannot dig your own. If you have high expenses, let's say that you earn $5,000 a month and you spend $5,500 a month, and that's not uncommon. A lot of people spend more than they make. You're not going to be able to start your own thing, because you can't just suddenly make $5,500 a month in a brand new company. Nobody knows you yet. You don't have a podcast yet. You don't have marketing channels yet. You don't know how to do social media yet. You don't have a big team yet, right? You're brand new. So you got to create a financial runway. Kevin and I had a pretty good financial runway where we could at least survive the storm. You've got to set yourself up to where you can weather the storm. And that's really, really, really important. And low expenses is how you do that.
When I talk about this on other podcasts, Alan, I always get weird reactions. And for me, it's totally normal. But I put myself, really us, because it really wasn't just me, it was us. I put us into $35,000 worth of credit card debt because I was betting on us. I was really betting on us, maybe to a reckless extent. So that would be something I would add, is you have to bet on yourself. But I would also say, don't over bet on yourself. This is I want to add one, and I'll try to get through my other ones, but if I don't, it's okay. You have to tap into your self-awareness of, and this is not going to be a popular one probably, but tap into your self-awareness and ask yourself, do I want to start my own thing, or do I want another 9-to-5? Because there's a lot of people out there that want to do something else and they think it's entrepreneurship and they realize pretty quickly that it's not. So really, really tap into that and maybe ask for the experiences of other people who have done it. I think that's an important one. Okay. So I remember when I left my job, there was this giant weight that was lifted off my shoulders. And at the time, Alan and I didn't have clients. We were only doing one episode a week, I think. So there really wasn't a whole lot going on in terms of content or the business. And I remember how challenging it was for me when I didn't have a boss. I remember how challenging it was to wake up early when I was the one in charge of what I was doing. I remember how challenging it was to make sure I was tracking my habits because there was nobody that was looking down on me. My third point, create an ideal day schedule. So Alan and I talk about the superpower of consistency and how that will bring you results in your life that you cannot imagine. But I think it's important that you practice it before you get out of your 9-to-5. You have to figure out, okay, you know what? Say I am, we'll just use us because I think it's the best example we can use because it's what we do. I'm a podcaster. What does my day look like? Well, I'm going to wake up at 6 a.m. I'm going to listen to something while I do my mobility and I get ready for the gym. Awesome. Okay, after that, I'm going to come home, I'm going to cook breakfast, something healthy, I'm going to shower, and then I'm going to sit at my laptop and I'm going to track my finances and walk yourself through what that ideal day would look like. And then imagine yourself doing it and then go from there. I think a lot of us jump and we don't know what our days are going to look like. And then we wonder why they're all over the place, or we wonder why we're not making the progress that we want. Again, it's planning. There's a lot of planning that should go into you leaving your 9 to 5. And this is my last point on this, and then I'll give Alan the floor. Understand that your circumstances are going to be different than Alan and I's were. Alan had a lot of money in the bank. I didn't have that much. I had 10 grand in the bank. But I was single. I lived with a buddy, $500 a month. My car was paid off. I had very, very low expenses like Alan spoke to. Understand that your journey and your transition is going to depend heavily on your circumstances. If you have a mortgage and 4 children, it's going to look different. It might take longer. The steps might be in different order. You have to understand. You have to get very, very self-aware when it comes to your circumstances as well. Very, very important.
So this next point, I want to take everyone behind the scenes a little bit. If Kevin and I could coach ourselves at the beginning of this journey, it would be so different. Now, it would just accelerate all of the progress. And this next point that I have is hire a coach who's actually done it. I'm going to take everyone behind the scenes for a second. If you were to go through our journey and listen to all 900 episodes, you would see that Kevin and I never talked about wealth creation back then. And if we did, it was very, very little. And here's why. We weren't wealthy yet. Okay? Now, I'm not saying that we're, going to be, well, here's what I'll say. We didn't talk about wealth creation because we felt outside of integrity. We knew that we weren't making a ton of money yet. Now we grossed like 100 grand in 3 months. So now we feel more congruent talking about it. And on paper, technically we are millionaires at this point because of the value of our business. But if you go back in the journey, you'll notice we didn't talk about sales until we were selling. We didn't talk about wealth creation until we were on our way to being wealthy. And this is something we don't talk about often, but if you listen to the Hyperconscious podcast before it was Next Level University, we were talking about change the way you think, change the way you act, change the way you live. And I can't even tell you how many times behind the scenes, Kevin and I were like, well, we know we're supposed to teach sales to people, but we're not really selling that much, so we can't talk about that yet. There it is. There's the Hyperconscious thing. Change the way you think, change the way you act, change the way you live. In those early days, we were talking a lot more about personal development and developing yourself and self-awareness and changing the way you think and mindset and peak performance long before we were talking about wealth because we weren't wealthy yet. So this is something that I want to bring home. Hire a coach who's actually done it. Okay, we had a successful podcast. That's why Kevin could coach on how to create a successful podcast. One of the reasons why it's so challenging for me to coach people is because I have some clients whose business grosses a lot more revenue than our business right now. That doesn't actually mean they know more about business necessarily. That's a whole nother conversation. But I want you to think of 3 circles. Okay, there's 3 circles. The far outside circle is your awareness. The next inner circle is your current capabilities. The far inner circle should be your results. What I'm telling you is that some coaches are the opposite. Some coaches have results that are out here, but their awareness and their capabilities is far lower. And so when you hire them, you realize, holy crap, they don't actually know what I thought they knew. How can they help me do it? Because they haven't really done it. I'll give you an example. There are some people in this industry who were very, very successful in different industries, and then they start a podcast on personal development. So they don't actually know. They had, multi-millions long before they started in this industry. I have some people I'm thinking of right now who bought their podcast. They purchased a podcast like ours and then started going that way. They bought their Instagram account, right? I know certain people who have 150,000 followers on Instagram and they purchased the account, right? Because they were already multimillionaires in a different industry. And then you hire them as your coach on how to start your podcast. And you realize later they bought their podcast and they bought their Instagram account. They don't even know how to grow the thing because they didn't do it. So here's my point. Number 3, when you're at the beginning of your journey, you need someone who's been through it. you got to hire a coach who's actually done it. And it's hard to know who's actually done it because there are a lot of people out there who bought followers or bought podcasts or bought reviews or, I mean, for me, I started on Instagram in fitness. That's how I gained my following. And now that I'm in personal development, my Instagram followers have been going down, not up, because fitness was where I started. And then when I started transitioning into all personal development, I've had a lot of trouble growing my Instagram. And so you might look at, how does he have 30,000 followers and only 50 likes? It's because I started in fitness. And if you go back and look at my old fitness content, you'd see 1,500 likes on some of those things. That's where I start. Not to mention back then, Instagram was also less saturated. Better. Yeah, exactly. But here's my point. You have to hire a coach who's actually done it. And remember, looks can be deceiving. You got to find someone who really has done it. Last example, and then we'll move on. We have a friend and mentor and coach. His name's Evan Carmichael. Eric Thomas, we've seen speak live, and you might have heard of Eric Thomas. Evan Carmichael started out with a YouTube channel back in 2009, and he did, I think it was like 3 videos a day, every day, up until now. I think he's in the 8,000s now. And he's the guy who does the top 10 videos. Evan Carmichael reverse engineered how to succeed on YouTube. So when we needed help with our YouTube, we went to Evan Carmichael. Eric Thomas had LeBron James tweet one of his speeches. It was a high school speech. You've probably seen it. It's when you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe, then you'll be successful. Awesome speech. I love it. I've listened to it thousands of times. It's literally on my morning mindset workout that I listen to every single morning, or I did for a long time. But he couldn't have anticipated that LeBron James tweeted that. His YouTube channel went viral after that, and Eric Thomas in many ways went viral after that. If you're going to learn YouTube, you should learn from Evan Carmichael, who did 8,000 videos and then got to, I think he's at 3.5 million subscribers now, versus someone who went viral. See how one of them went viral because of a tweet? And obviously Eric Thomas is amazing in other ways, so this is nothing against Eric. But if you're going to learn YouTube specifically, you got to go to someone who built it from the ground up. And so when you hire a coach, try to hire someone who really did build it from the ground up and not someone who, went viral or, was successful in a different industry and then transferred over.
We're still waiting to go viral. Never going to happen. That's okay. I remember, for those of you who might be new or you don't know my story and or Alan's story, my job required a lot of travel. My 9 to 5 wasn't really a 9 to 5. It was a 7 to 3 or second shift, depending on where we work. Sometimes it was third shift, which was brutal, but it required a lot of travel. I remember one day, I don't remember the exact logistics, but I got up super early. We drove, I think, 7 hours somewhere. I worked an 8-hour day, and I remember, I have a video of this because I posted it on Snapchat. I remember I went back to the room and I laid down, and I remember saying, yeah, it's been like a 16, 17-hour day, but now I have to edit my latest episode. This was before Alan and I were working together. And after a long day of working full-time, I had to do my second job, which at the time was the podcast. If you are doing something full-time and you want to do something else full-time, you're going to have to do both full-time for a little bit. And I think that's an important distinction for a lot of people. They say, well, I want to get to the light at the end of the tunnel. Well, you're going to have to do multiple tunnels to get there. It just is the way it works unless you have a lot of money saved up or there's a unique circumstance. I remember, I don't know if I've ever told this story. I went to England, shout out to Cope Daddy, Andrew Copeland. I went out to England with him and I brought all of my podcast equipment with me. A lot of people thought I was going on vacation. I was not going on vacation. I was going on a trip to chase my fears, but also I wanted a podcast. And I remember we went to London and I had this giant bag, massive bag with all of my equipment in it. And we took a train to northern England where Andrew has somebody who has a house. And I remember I had to put my giant 55-pound bag on my lap for the entire 2.5-hour train ride because somebody wanted to sit next to me. It was brutal. It was so difficult. And lugging that around, I mean, when Alan and I travel, we bring all of our equipment with us. It's a pain in the ass. Pardon my French. It sucks. We have to check the bag. We have to pay an extra $60. We're lugging it around everywhere we go. It's brutal. But if you want to go full time in your own thing and you're already doing something full time, you're going to have to do both. There will be a series of time or a length of time where you have to work more than you want. You'll have to do 8 hours and 8 hours. You'll have to do 4 hours and 8 hours, or whatever it may be. There will be a time where you have to eat dirt for a while. It just is that. It's pretty much unavoidable unless you have some very unique positive circumstances. But understand that it's not going to be pretty in the beginning. It's okay. Don't compare yourself to the people you see on Instagram. And that's my last point too, Alan. I'll let you go. Prepare for judgment. A lot of people are going to say, hey, why are you doing this? You have a great job. You have great benefits. You have health insurance, blah, 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 blah. People aren't necessarily going to understand why do you want to do your own thing. Get familiar with the fact that that's going to happen. It doesn't mean they're right. They have different thoughts. It doesn't mean you can't succeed. It doesn't mean you can't do your own thing. Make sure you have the proper guidance. Make sure you're listening to the right people. People are just afraid to see you get hurt. They're afraid to see you fail. They're afraid to see you leave them behind. A lot of people will judge your decision, but it doesn't mean that it's not the right decision for you. Maybe it's just not the right decision for them. So really get familiar with that before you make the leap.
I just want to say this real quick, Kev. When I found out that you brought your podcast equipment to London, that's when I knew you would succeed, because I knew that most people would never take it that seriously. For me, I literally remember saying, like, that's an indicator that he's going to be successful.
Because the audio was jeffed. The audio was jeffed in that episode. I'll never forget it.
The amount of effort. You're welcome, brother. If you didn't do that, we might not be here today.
Well,
because I remember being like, what? He brought it to England? Holy crap. That's dedication. That shows something. Absolutely, brother. Okay, 4 and 5, I'm going to hammer them both quickly. 4 is create a long enough runway. We've already talked about this. Very, very simple. What are your monthly expenses? What is that number? Let's say it's $3,000. Take 3,000, multiply it by 12. So in this case, it would be 36,000. That's how much you need in your bank account before you jump full time. You need to, wait, no, I messed that up. That was 12 times. Yeah, 3,000 times 12, 36,000. Yeah, yep. That's the amount that you need in your bank account before you jump full time. That means you have a full year. You have a full year of a runway to make sure that plane takes off. Okay? I had a client once who wanted to start a podcast, and he's like, I'm thinking about jumping full time. I said, don't yet. Create a nest egg. Create a nest egg. We want at least a 12-month runway. You need a runway before the plane will take off. Trust me, you might even need more than a year. 5th point, decide in advance and brand yourself accordingly. I decided in advance I wanted to be a fitness competitor, a fitness model, and a fitness coach long before I looked like one, long before anyone knew that I was. And I got made fun of quite a bit, actually, right? But I did it. I was a fitness model, a fitness coach, and a fitness competitor. I've got the trophies and the clients to prove it, and I actually got paid for modeling shoots as well. But I had to decide in advance, this is what I'm committed to. And then I branded myself as that. If you don't believe that you are the thing, no one else is going to believe you. That's why we say to do it for free first. Kevin didn't feel like a speaker back then. Okay, let's go give some free speeches. Kevin didn't feel like a podcaster back then. Okay, start a podcast. Kevin didn't feel like a coach back then. Okay, go get some free clients. You have to create the identity in advance and work toward it. And then you start to see yourself as a podcaster, see yourself as a speaker, see yourself as a coach. And then other people start to see you as that. And then it starts to snowball. Okay? That's why we're saying start small and build. At one point, Amazon was Jeff Bezos in a garage selling books online. And now it's Amazon.com all these years later. Big things start small. Just remember that. You got to start small and you got to build and you got to set yourself up to weather the storm for the long run.
Fire. Next level nation. Speaking of money, imagine if you could make $100 for 1 minute of your time. I used to make $100 and something an hour back in the day when I was working at my corporate job. I thought that was awesome. You can do it in 1 minute. So for the entire month of April, we have this going on where you can leave us a review. All you got to do is click the link in the show notes if you're listening, or below if you're watching this live. Leave us a review on your platform of choice so we can help more people like you, and you will be entered into a drawing to win a $100 Amazon gift card at the end of the month. We're going to pick it totally randomly, so make sure you get in before the end of the month. 1 minute, $100, pretty good.
If this was something that resonated with you, group coaching's a much deeper dive. Imagine this was 1 hour, 40-minute Q&A, or 40-minute keynote, 20-minute Q&A. Now imagine behind the scenes, 6 separate hours privately with 9 other individuals. That's group coaching. We're going to go much deeper and we're going to help you really set yourself up in a way where you have that runway. And even Kevin's question there at the end about the optimal stopping problem and expenses and all that kind of stuff, we go deep into all of that. And in group coaching, you can ask questions that are much deeper, and that we have the real time to answer. And then on top of that, you're going to get a free half-hour coaching session with me at the end of it. So join group 6. We already have 6 people signed up, 3 or 4 verbal yeses. It will close by the end of the week. We have a bunch of people interested. It's only $75 to lock your spot. So it's $441 for the program. You can pay all up front. You can pay over 3 months, or you can pay 6 months. And if you choose 6 months, it's only $75 a month for the next 6 months. And I promise you, you will make way more than that in the long run with what you learn in this program.
As with everything we do, we try to over-deliver. There's people that charge way, way, way more money for group coaching. That's the price point we're at right now. It's way more valuable than that. Please, 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 it will change your life. I believe that now more than I ever have. And we want to see you there. It's a deeper dive.